Hey guys, Yonas here. Don't forget to click down below to like and subscribe for more card game content. Thank you guys for your continued support, and I hope you guys enjoyed today's video.
Alrighty, let's jump right into the top eight of the Japan final. We have a Shanks versus a Doflamingo. Dofi has a relatively solid hand. It hand looks relatively like soft to exactly a Red Hawk to get rid of the Teach, but other than that, the hand's really potent. Having Weevil's explosive turns with Jinbei is all super nice. Okay. The Shanks hand and deck is a little bit unconventional. This hand's very aggressive leading, which I'm really liking, but there's also a couple starter deck cards in here that are really interesting. Both that 2K Sanji in the middle, which effectively acts as a Diablo Jambe in this deck for Straw Hat characters, and then the 5 cost Luffy, which is a non-counter and it will probably show up a little bit more later in the game, and we'll talk about it then. But should be a super fun game to watch, and hopefully this game kind of highlights a little bit of the more aggressive slant of Shanks, where sometimes you can have a much more aggressive leading deck, and that can be relatively powerful. Speaking of aggressive leading, it looks like his deck also has Nami Searcher, so it's probably not the exact control Shanks we're used to nowadays, and hopefully it's relatively powerful. And Yep, I think this is going to be exactly what I mentioned regarding the awkwardness of Teach, or like relying too much on Teach in this matchup. Um, Looks like he chose not to play the Jinbei there and chose to um, just play the Weevil. Looks like he probably wants to play the Jinbei on his 5 Dawn turn as just like two active characters. I probably would have played the Jinbei, honestly, just to bait my opponent into considering the Red Hawking the Jinbei there instead of the Teach, because we really want the Teach in play. Um, Honestly, not that big of a deal, but as this game's going to play out, it's perfectly fine. And our Nami finds chose not to take Bad Manners Kick Course and just taking another 5 cost Luffy, so hopefully that these Luffys, even though they're bricks, will be relatively useful this game. Um, and yeah, I think this is exactly what I kind of mentioned. Relying too much on Teach with your opening hand isn't that big of a deal, but sometimes your 5 Dawn turn looks really anemic, and the stage is going to be 6 plus Jinbei Moria. Um, and that can work, but sometimes can be very, very weak. Yep, looks like it's Shinbei Moria. Deciding whether to bring back Teach or the Weevil. The Weevil is going to be a better body to attack, but the Teach is also going to be a great way to actually get these characters in play. Hoping to find a Teach when you bring back the Weevil there is going to be fine, but can sometimes be awkward. Okay, well, this hand looks like it does one thing and one thing only, which is these 5 cost Luffys. So this Luffy is from starter deck, I believe 23 or 21, one of those. 21. It's a 5 cost 6k rush, and when attacking, attach a rested Dawn to one of your characters or leaders. So this guy makes some really aggressive swings happen throughout the entire game, and it's a really important card of the mirror, where you actually get to swing 6 a lot of the time instead of 5s. So definitely super duper powerful. I'm really liking this aggressive slant from the Shanks side. You kind of get the catch of your Dofi opponents lacking, where you just get to apply a lot of pressure with them instead, or at them instead of dealing with their board the entire time. Dofi opponent starts with a 5 here. I'm kind of surprised. We found a teach off of taking the life. My default this kind of turn would probably just like barrage my opponents with sevens and try to ignore this Luffy. However, he's trying to take a much more board approach where he just keeps trying to deal with board, I assume, once if you do that 5 and just bully this Luffy with like 8k swings or something. Um, Play Teach, almost always going to be playing Weevil here. Um, yeah, just going to be doing some swings here probably. Swing 8-8 if your opponent lets you. And after you're already using leader ability, there's almost no way you want to defend all your resources at 5 life to defend this. And thankfully, the Dofi opponent did find a Sengoku off that Weevil draw, so you get to just go 7 at life instead and then play a Sengoku. Really looking for a 2K. Being 2K-less when your opponent's been applying this much pressure at your life is kind of terrifying. Um, and I'm curious what the Shanks opponent really wants to do here. One of the main issues in this matchup is when you don't have the top end, you really can't afford to keep fighting for board. So I really hope the Shanks opponent really uses their turn to just keep applying pressure at life. Oh, and Does it look like he is? Yep, 2K counter out of the six. And if this seven's going at life, I really like strategically where the Shanks opponent's playing. Um, yep, perfect. Yeah, I think if you can't play forever, your goal is to try to close the game out before it gets too late. And with a Red Hawk here, like dealing with board is only so useful. Just keep applying that pressure at life. It's probably going to be your best bet. Um, okay. The Dofi probably has the most interesting turn here because you don't really need to deploy anything anymore. You just need to fix your hand up because of how little counter you have. And you really want to try to apply as much pressure to end this game sooner rather than later. I'm surprised he's debating hard playing the Weevil. From my perspective, I think I would just almost always spend all of my dawn attacking just to end the game sooner and just use kind of teaches kind of raw effect. Oh, Sengoku is in the trash. But like I think I would just use teach effect, put the card on top, and just swung even larger this turn. If your opponent wants to make it a race, we'll make it a race and try to end the game very soon. Obviously, you want to attach some Dawn to your 5K bodies like our opponent's doing here, just to kind of make sure the game goes relative, or you can't get Red Hawk for free during this turn. So um, it looks like we're going to do something along the lines of 6-6-7-7-7 or something. Really taxing those 2Ks, really getting those cards out of hand. Um, I don't know what card we put on top with the leader effect. I'm not entirely sure if it's a Weevil or not. Um, Trying to navigate these turns can be dangerous because using like your leader ability 1K can make you fall prey to a bunch of sevens. So you kind of just have to hold the line and use your 2Ks as much as you possibly can in these moments, even though it can be very painful to just bleed your 2Ks nonstop. Um, Six and then six. Yep, you really just got to counter this one. Yep, Makino, as much as you'd love to use it with Nami when you're being so aggressive, probably is going to matter less than a Jambé effect with the Sanji 2K in hand. So, oh, he's just choosing to take it, just to not run out of counter too much here and maybe lose his Luffy. So that also makes sense. Um, and this Red Hawk is like really, or leaving up that Red Hawk Dawn is going to be very scary from the Dofi side, but it also just like makes it very complicated to attack because a lot of times when you're in these spots, you just want to swing eight randomly with your leader just so your opponent can't leader ability 2K or something like that. So, um, just leaving up this two Dawn is really like suppressing the height of these Dofi attack swings, and he's kind of just forced to just keep doing sevens. Um, okay. Oh, and this last one is just going to be a nine. Okay. Yep. Did he just forget to use leader ability and just had to give up an extra card? Is that what happened there? I think so. But that's a small timing window. You have to use your Shanks leader effect before you end up actually using your counter. It doesn't matter too often, but it does matter in this spot. And finding a third Red Hawk is going to be even more of a nightmare for the Dofi opponent. Basically, all that's really going to happen this turn, I imagine, is just swinging really tall from the Dofi side, or from the Shanks side. Probably just like 9-10 or 10-10 and leave up Red Hawk. I'm not entirely sure what the exact numbers are. Looks like it's going to be 9 and then 10. Yep, 9 and then 10, and then leave up 2 Dawn. And that's super obnoxious against with one when your opponent only has one 2K in hand. I think if I had two 2Ks, I would just snap counter this 9 and be pretty content with it. But you definitely have to take that. And then this 10, after not finding another 2K, is really interesting. You could try to counter this, but if that happens, you're basically living under the threat of Dragon or Makinos on these Namis for the rest of this game. And that's like a little too precarious for my taste because you'd have to give like 5 cards for this 10. I would just take this and then try to find a way to sculpt a hand that can either beat these really, even like a 15K swing from leader, or can like put a blocker in play and maybe make things a little bit scarier. Well, we did at least find one 2K, and one of the ones we had in our hand before was a Kaya that can actually get rid of this like non-counter, hopefully fixing our hand a little bit. Just to do some math, we have two 2Ks and seven 1Ks. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. Okay, so I think you can barely only counter up to 15, so you can't even beat the entire or Shanks's board, let alone if the Luffy survives, it's going to be even more of a nightmare. So we have to do some improvements to our hand. The Kai is probably number one improvement, to be honest, and then either Moria or Law to either bounce that Kaya once we play it, or um, Moria to like bring back a 2K. The Crocodile in our trash can be relatively useful. And yeah, I think the Shanks opponent correctly identified he can't really lose this turn with a zero cost, two 2Ks and a Red Hawk, but he really can't afford to lose this Luffy. So he knows the last turn will be the ultimate one. So trying to maybe bait your dopey opponent into going for game is important, but more so you just need to make sure that this Luffy doesn't go away. So, um, next use goes six. Just continuing that, you might need every single Dawn you can afford to play Kayas and play Laws and Morias, so nothing more than like the bare minimums to require responses from your opponent. 2K is good. Probably just another six to be honest. You really don't want to go for game as the Dofi opponent to be particularly frank, especially if your opponent left up searched Red Hawk. Um, Found a non-counter, which honestly, on none of this really matters. Having effectively zero zero plus 2K plus Red Hawk is 9K. So even if the Dofi was able to miraculously make like 13K swings twice, Shanks would still be able to survive. So we're in a fine spot. Next, we're trying to do a 7 to force our opponent to waste some cards. In this case, we're getting zero cost plus Rayleigh. And now that we are in this spot, we probably just need to spend some time playing Kaya's and seeing what our improvements are. So, yeah, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Okay, so Kaya, really looking for counter, and we were fortunate to find 2K, 1K there. We're super lucky. Definitely getting rid of the two non-counters here. Um, and if you play Moria, you're effectively getting rid of a 1K from your hand to get back a 2K. So it's kind of a net one positive. But if you play Law, you can bounce the Law back to your hand or any of the 1Ks in play, as well as the Kaya. So you get to turn a 1K into a 1K and a 2K, which will probably be the best you can do to improve. Um, and if he does that, he'll have an unbelievable amount of 1Ks in his hand. Not entirely sure what the exact math, but I think we're barely enough surviving the board. So if you bring back the 1K and the 2K, we have three 2Ks. Okay, we're shooting a 7 net life. A lot of this is like mostly irrelevant, to be honest. Um, it's mostly about whether Shanks can do enough for lethal. Three 2Ks and seven 1Ks. So if you do a 15K swing at lead, you can counter with all but two of the 1Ks, and then the last two 1Ks can be used to survive with the 6K Luffy swing, so that's good enough. Um, Dragon doesn't change that. I think that's exactly the same math either way. Um, you kind of net a plus 1K when you play the Dragon because of the Luffy, but since you played the Dragon, it actually doesn't really change your combat math much. Um, Either way, it's going to be some really fun combat math to deal with. So I'm really excited to see if he chooses just commit to the bit and just do a super large swing, or if he's choosing to play the dragon. Looks like it's a dragon just to get some real fun, clean numbers. So if you play the dragon, it's going to be exactly 799. So let's see how this plays out. And you go 2K, 1K to this swing. You go what, two 2Ks and a 1K for the next nine. And thankfully, there isn't a a card like Machino to buff leaders in this deck. So the 5/1Ks are going to be able to counter that last Shanks swing. That was a nail biter from the Dofi side, but I think that was almost, I think it was a very masterful execution from the Shanks player. Um, him identifying his role as the aggressor, not getting too focused on trying to deal with Dofi's board, and putting the game in a much more precarious spot than I would have expected with a hand really relying on 5-cost Luffy's. So that game was really, really awesome. Congrats to the Dofi player that played it. It was a really swingy game to watch and terrifying as the Shanks opponent to try to go for a game against a million card hand. That game was super really awesome. I'm really excited to see a lot of the starter deck 21 cards played in action, and seeing a lot more super crazy racing scenarios like that is one of my favorite parts about One Piece. So, really awesome top 8 game. Hopefully these guys do, or hopefully the player goes even further in this tournament. And I will see you guys in the top 4 video.